Many know of the Glastonbury Zodiac, the great star temple in Avalon, 10 miles across, 30 miles round, its figures contoured by hills, outlined by roads and rivers. The sculptress Katherine Maltwood, who discovered it in the 1920s, concluded that early Sumerian immigrants, recognizing the terrain's potential, developed it with roads, ramparts, and barrows. She claimed it as Avalon's original round table, with Arthur, his chief knights, and Guinevere still seated about it as the zodiac signs. These legends were vigorously revived in the 1100s by Eleanor of Aquitaine, Henry II's queen, who was sympathetic to the Cathars of Provence, whose Gnostic and astrological teachings came through southern Europe from Chaldea. Druids held the same teachings. But few are aware that the Thames and its tributaries draw a similar pattern round Kingston's ancient town in Surrey. Larger than Somerset's Circle, it's about 16 miles across. Ancient roads connecting prehistoric villages beneath modern suburbia complete the outlines. And like Avalon's zodiac, it's confirmed by many intriguing place names and local legends. Huge hounds guard both circles to the west, as Cerberus guarded the other world. Kingston's dog stretches from Egham to Weybridge, 7 miles from nose tip to tail. On his hams, at Ham, is Docket Point. And Pharaoh's 8, called Dog 8 when Charles I, hunting at Oatlands, kept his hounds there. Despite Docket, he has a waving tail, drawn by Desborough Channel. Brooklands erstwhile racetrack, now an aeroplane museum, forms his back leg. The River Wey traces his rump to where it joins the Thames. But let us enter this other world in style, through his watchful eye at Great Foster's, a lovely hunting lodge of Henry VIII, once deep in Windsor Forest. For it is another world, a world of the unconscious, of myth, imagination, and coincidence. Suitably enough, Henry Percy, the astrologer Earl, was here too. Did he know the zodiac's secret? Herne the Hunter's hounds at Windsor Forest provide more dog legends. People claim they're still heard baying on stormy nights, even today. But is this horned hunter not Celtic Cananus, who appears on the Gundestrup Bowl, surrounded by forest creatures? There's even a Runnymede legend near our Hound's Ear, which tells how King John turned into a wolf after signing Magna Carta. Lyne Lane obligingly draws his foreleg, and Holloway's impressive pile, now luxury flats, marks his nose from miles away. Can Prune Hill, nearby, remember this damp black nose? Callow Hill, next to it, has a dog legend. They say that Henry VIII's coffin split open here on its way to Windsor, and the dogs licked his blood, fulfilling a monk's prophecy. The same grisly tale is told at Zion House. The M3 cuts through his jaw today, but concrete pillars carrying the M25 overhead have given him a fine new set of teeth, and a perpetual growl of traffic. Motorists, be warned, you're entering this zodiac through his very jaws. His shoulder, raised on St. Anne's Hill, an old British camp, preserves its ancient calm and beauty above this modern frenzy. It is a beacon with splendid views. St. Anne's Well is still here, where its defenders drank. Who was St. Anne? Surely not the ghostly nun, who was walled up here for trysting with her lover. No, she must be Black Annis, the old British witch, who named so many hills before St. Anne baptized her. Chertsey on the Hound's Back has yet another dog legend. Blanche Heriot hid her Lancastrian lover from his Yorkist enemies upstairs, but their bloodhounds smelt him out. Bare-handed, he emerged from his cupboard and strangled it, throwing it downstairs, just as Hercules strangled Cerberus, throwing him into the underworld. But her lover was caught and condemned to die at curfew, while Blanche sent urgently for the king's pardon. This heroine of the poem "Curfew Shall Not Sound Tonight" muffled the bell by hanging onto the clapper and swinging with it, thus saving his life until the pardon came clattering over Chertsey Bridge. Three strange coincidences are here. Chertsey Abbey was founded in the year 666, the number of the beast. Blanche Heriot's name recalls this Heriot beast, returnable at a tenant's death to his overlord. And can Chertsey's curfew, one of few still rung today, remember that a cur was once a watchdog? Sadly, there is not much remaining now of this once splendid abbey. Leo was the first sign found in both zodiacs, so we will enter the circle with him. The old hook to Ewell Road draws his back and tail. Its tuft is rounded at Bourne Hall. His barrel is Barwell Lane, Chessington, spelt Burrell on old maps. Leo, ruled by the sun, is royal, and old palaces surround him, though only Clermont is actually on his figure. It was home to exiled French royals, and to the young Victoria, and to aptly named Leopold, later Belgium's king. In fact, 3 Leopolds lived here in succession. Much of Leo is crown land, for kings from nearby palaces hunted here. Racing is also the sport of kings, and Charles II made Epsom on his hind foot famous. Lions still roar at Chessington World of Adventures, and nowhere else on the Zodiac. On the Leatherhead Road, whose quaint name was once Leo Dryden, this great Kids Out Day reminds us that Leo's house is concerned with leisure, pleasure, and children. Here is a whole zodiac of animals. Is it accident merely that Enid Blyton, who has delighted so many children, lived here at Hook and used this countryside for her adventure stories? Chessington's old manor, called Burnt Stubbs, was burnt in the Civil War, and Leo, significantly, is a fire sign. The coat of arms of its family was a lion, so stone lions are everywhere. Surbiton's coat of arms has a lion too. St. Mark's Church there is well named, for St. Mark's sign is also a lion. Charming old Thames Ditton, Leo's head, remembers him by Leo House and Lion House, and also by the Red Lion Inn. Opposite the ancient church lived Lord St. Leonard's, suitably enough, once Lord Chancellor of England. He lived at Boyle Farm and named at least 3 St. Leonard's roads in the district on this figure. On his mane is Love Lane. Leo is the Lord of Love. The Lovelace family lived here too, naming local roads. Was the Surrey leopard, often seen in these woods, Leo's ghost? Long may London's lovers entwine in Oxshott woods. His summer power is strong. Surbiton's Maypole Inn remembers rustic rave-ups here. Leo should be tethered at hooks, or he can destroy. Chessington Church's old Annunciation marble anticipates our next sign, Virgo. Virgo's figure stretches from Ewell to Beddington, her harvest wheat sheaf rounded by Barrow Hill, Old Malden. Or is this wheat sheaf Britannia's trident? Note the headway on her headdress, where she flaunts Leo's tail tuft. Roman-stained street runs past her, just like the Fosse Way on Somerset's Virgo. Henry VIII, famous for beheading queens, actually preserved her head for us in Nonsuch Park. Her profile is a dried watercourse, her nose a triangular copse, her ear convoluted rhododendron beds in a sunken dip. Her eye still sparkles where it should. Sagittarius, too, has a pond eye. Diana's ditch nearby remembers her as the huntress. How could splendid Nonsuch Palace last? For Henry destroyed Cuddington village to build it over them, with stones from Merton Abbey, which he'd also ruined. Many queens were here, and Charles II's many loves, for Virgo is Queen of the Zodiac, with many place names to prove it. At Epsom, Eber's Ham, and Yule, Eve's Well, she is Eve. Cuddington and Chadacre Road recall British Ked, or Ceridwen. She is the Banshee of Bandon Hill and Ben Hill. And Banstead. At Carshalton, who is she but the old witch, Mother Carey? Sutton's Robin Hood Lane and Sherwood Park hint at Maid Marian. The foundations of Nonsuch Banqueting Hall are still by Yule Bypass. Queen Elizabeth was here. She often rode down Virgo's back, and the park keeper told us that her horse kicked a stone in Carshalton Park and started the River Wandle. But surely it's a little older than that. However, all virgin queens are one, and doubtless our Virgo shines through this legend. At Carshalton, they still celebrate Anne Boleyn, her mother, with a statue and a well. Anne was thought to be a witch for bewitching Henry VIII. I was told here that she bathed her feet in Carshalton ponds, near Virgo's feet. Experts now doubt that she was ever here, the name Boleyn resembling that of the local family Boleyn. So is Anne Boleyn another Virgoan memory? Anne in myth is often the mother of the Virgin. The Cornish Carews, whose name remembers Mother Carey, built their magnificent Surrey seat at Beddington. Did they know the secret? The Carey River draws Somerset's Virgo. The Carews have gone, but under Caring Virgo it is now a special school. The Wandle draws the hem of her skirt through Beddington Park, and a grey lady still haunts its mists. Sir Walter Raleigh is thought to be buried in the Carew Chapel in the church. If so, he has laid the cloak of his headless body at the Virgin Queen's feet forever. Pre-Raphaelites painted all over her. William Morris decorated Beddington Church and made tapestry at Merton. How Virgoan. Holman Hunt painted the famous The Light of the World here by the Hogsmill River at Old Malden. Millais drowned Ophelia in its stream. The suburbs which now cover Virgo reflect her qualities, neat, methodical, modest. Hers is the Zodiac House of Health. This area has more than its share of hospitals. Virgo is also industrious. She holds her bountiful wheat sheaf at Old Malden, where the historic Plough Inn reminds us we must work to eat. By its church, William de Merton founded his school, from which grew Merton College, Oxford, the only college with a sculptured zodiac. Is it chance merely that 3 kings of Mitcham have come to worship at Virgo's feet? Some say that it remembers Saxon kings who died here fighting the Danes, but it's nonetheless well placed. As in the Glastonbury Zodiac, a bird replaces the usual scales at Libra. The Thames dictates its outspread wings, and with its body drawn at right angles to them by the London road crossing the bridge, it resembles the scales. Even before the bridge there was a shallow ford here, as Kingston's Saxon name Morford shows. The scales of justice are here too, for Libra attracted Surrey's county court here from Guildford, where it should be, and built it nobly. Strange how the dove confronts it across the road. Kingston Church's only effigy is of an eminent lawyer, Sir Anthony Benn. Libra is a communicative sign and loves debate, so it's interesting that Hansard, Parliament's recorder, is also buried in Kingston. Libra's air sign befits a bird. It also attracted Hawker's well-named aircraft industry here, which grew vastly into British aerospace. But which bird is it? As Hawks Road on its body suggests, an eagle, as in Eden Street, and vanished Eagle Wharf. Caine Wharf and Caine Inn have now gone, but Crane's Park remains. Or is it a raven flying from Noah's Ark on Raven's 8? An old map calls this boat-shaped island Raven's Arse 8. Perhaps that was Noah's last view of his bird as it took off. There were 3 pigeon inns off both wingtips, though one has now gone. This bird, flying from the head of Sagittarius, the dying sun of December, is his spirit, the word or logos, signed of old by a dove. It's a sun ray enlightening the world and seeding Mother Earth with life. Libra is the sign of the artist, communicator, teacher, inspirer. Many newspapers are produced here. A famous art school, 2 splendid art collections, a lively museum and art gallery, and now even a university seem inevitable under Libra's ray. Even those notorious telephone boxes seem to stand for the principle of communication. It all began here in this Chantry Chapel, Kingston's oldest building, now flanked by 2 top-league grammar schools. Perhaps the priests taught Richard II, for his mother, the Fair Maid of Kent, owned Tolworth Court near Virgo's wheat sheaf, and sent her son to school in Kingston. Glastonbury St Dunstan crowned Alfred the Educator's son and his descendants on this ancient stone, which was once in the Saxon church. Did Dunstan know the secret? He was an alchemist, and he came from the Glastonbury Zodiac to crown them on another. Why were these coronations not at Winchester, the Saxon capital? These kings all connect with Glastonbury. Its Edmund Hill remembers the deed doer, while Edgar had a palace there. Libra's sign is small, but its influence has been great. The Saxon dynasty, like Libra, was popular and fair. Their parliament, the Witan of wise men, seeded our democracy, remaining in race memory despite the autocratic Norman conquest. Kingston's oldest legend reads like sun myth and hints at the zodiac, which is the path of the sun. King Kenwal was lured from Kingston to Merton by a maiden in 755, long before Alfred, but killed there by a jealous cousin and rival, Caine. Merton lies between alluring Virgo and Scorpio's death sign. The men of Kingston, incensed, marched to Merton and cut off Caine's head, kicking it all the way back to Kingston. Each Hocktide they reenacted this with a wild football game in Kingston Market. Other old Kingston customs, the King game and the Maypole Robin Hood game, also hint at sun myth, for the Maypole is a sun and season symbol, its ribbons interweaving planetary influences. The museum has a Roman altar to the goddess of fortune, found in Eden Street. Is this zodiac not fortune's wheel? Scorpio, ruled by Mars and Pluto, is the zodiac sign of death and transformation. Pluto exposes the past so that we may die to it and be renewed. No wonder Wandsworth Prison is here. Much of Scorpio has a depressed air, as though it couldn't quite forget the Danish ravaging on the Wandle River. Many Saxon and Danish graves with their weapons were found at mournful Ravensbury. Tooting Graveney and Morden are death names here too, while Cannon Hill and Roman Stane Street nearby lay down martial law. It was on this sign that King Kenwal was killed. There are more cemeteries on this sign than in any other. Car cemeteries abound too, for Mars' metal is iron. Each scorpionic claw has a huge burial mound, this one in Morden Park and another on Wimbledon Common near the windmill, said to belong to Guinevere, Caradoc's brother, killed fighting invading Romans. Caesar's camp and well here remember these battles. Those Caradoc and Guinevere fought in Claudius' invasion 90 years later. The word Caesar, however, seems right on this claw. When the sun declined in Scorpio, Osiris, killed by his envious brother Set, was floated down the Nile, mourned by the triple goddess Isis. Is the Oxford and Cambridge boat race, rowed now from Putney near Scorpio's sting, a memory of this? It was first rowed on Oxford's Isis. So Arthur, killed by his death-named son Mordred, floated down the river Brue to Avalon, mourned by 3 weeping queens. 2 churches opposed each other on either bank, where he entered the Glastonbury Zodiac through Scorpio. So here, Putney and Fulham churches flanked the Thames. 2 giant sisters built these Thames churches, so legend tells, with but one hammer between them, throwing it over the Thames to alternate shouts of "put nigh" and "full home." When it broke, a hammersmith mended it for them. Does Hurlingham remember these hurling sisters? Were they Kingston Zodiac giants? And were these old stones at Fulham Palace once part of a stone circle? A Norman arch re-erected in Merton churchyard is all we have of Merton Priory, which was once as big as Southwark Cathedral, though some pathetic foundations can still be seen under Sainsbury's supermarket, a true temple to Mammon on this once sacred site. Monks once fished in the Wandle, whose scorpionic energy turned many water wheels. Here William Morris's tapestry works became Liberty's Mill. Scorpios are noted for their courage in the face of danger. Nelson's and Lady Hamilton's mansion and estate once stood by this river at Merton. All built over now, its site is only signed by the Nelson Arms. Our greatest admiral was drawn to live on this water sign. Their love affair was typical of passionate Scorpio. His arms, at least, are in Merton Church, but his mounting stone outside seems an inadequate local memorial. Scorpio's Mars and revolutionary Pluto are not good at preservation. Most of Scorpio's rich past here is buried underground with Pluto. No wonder John Innes flourished on this sign, making his famous compost here. A school now reaps the benefit of his splendid house. An ardent Freemason who founded Merton's Lodge, he was irresistibly drawn to secretive Scorpio. Sagittarius, anciently identified with the Asian sun god Asa, or Ahura, is not a centaur here, but a mounted archer, ranging over Richmond Park and drawn by its footpaths and roads. His bow, the Thames curve, aiming for the stars, specifically the bull's-eye Aldebaran just across the river. The very shape of the park reveals his hooded head and shoulders. Note how the Thames bends allow for his horse's head and legs. Did Ahura become Arthur? There are two Arthur roads on this figure. Or is he Robin Hood? This figure is hooded. Both heroes belong more to sun myth than history. Both stood against oppression, had zodiacal bands, a queen, a peerless lieutenant, and a counsellor. Both were betrayed, and dying sent a last sun ray to earth. Arthur's sword into the lake, Robin's arrow into the forest. Robin Hood games were played for centuries in Kingston. A Robin Hood roundabout, park gate, pub and lane all remember him here. He's not confined to Sherwood. Robin Hood's hill was a mound, now gone, in the old deer park. Archery is still practised in both parks. He's not only an archer. Ruled by Jupiter, he's the Zodiac's philosopher king. Aptly enough, Bertrand Russell was reared at Pembroke Lodge in Richmond Park, and there are other philosophers who lived from time to time on his figure. The Richmond end of the park has wide-ranging views to Windsor Castle, and St Paul's can be seen on the famous mound, where Henry VIII, they say, paused from hunting to see the signal of Anne Boleyn's execution in the Tower. There are Sagittarian riders aplenty here, and polo is only played on this effigy, nowhere else on the Zodiac. Many clues hint at this Sagittarian figure hanging upside down in the park. Gallows Pond is his eye, below his domed brow, near Kingston Gate. From here, the road to Richmond Gate bends round Royal Thatched Lodge to form his nose. His heart is heart-shaped Isabella Plantation, blood red with blossom in the spring. Spanker's Wood spanks his and his horse's rump near Chowhole Gate. Mind-boggling names. Pen Ponds, still potently erect, are just where you'd expect, though he's the declining sun of December. But the Star and Garter near his knee at Richmond Gate is ready to receive all ageing heroes. The Spur Inn on his heel, now closed, was a curious coincidence, though it was named from a railway spur at Caine. Black and white horse pubs abound on his figure. Preeminent among them all, of course, is Putney's splendid spotted horse. Richmond and Kew still have a royal air, though Sheen's old palace has gone, with only its gatehouse to remind us it was there. Beneath it, on the horse's front leg, ghostly hoofbeats are still occasionally heard, where the opportunist Carew waited for the dying Queen Elizabeth's ring to be dropped to him, so he could gallop to Scotland and give it to James I. Kewfoot Road is on his mount's front foot, and Kew Road, which draws the other front leg, was earlier called Horse Lane. Kew Gardens, with its royal beasts, still keeps its palace. How fortunate we are that kings have preserved so much of this Sagittarian figure for us. Merlin, his druid advisor, even had a grotto here in the 18th century. But Merlin, hoary with ancient wisdom, really belongs to Capricorn, just over the river. There is a marked character contrast as we cross Kew Bridge from Sagittarius to Brentford's busy workaday Capricorn. This wintry sign is subject to delays and obstructions, as motorists here well know. But they're not the first to be frustrated. A pillar in the High Street tells us how at this ancient ford even victors had to pause. Cassivelaunus blocked Caesar's advance, Edmund Ironside delayed Canute, and Prince Rupert even defeated the Roundheads. Goat Wharf here is a notable clue among many once busy wharves on this Thames reach, and the Grand Union Canal still transports goods from right across the country. Capricorn's rewards are hard won. Commerce Road and Occupation Road are names you won't find in Richmond. Even Brentford's old church is now a furniture warehouse. No time for prayer, it seems. Horn Lane on his hind leg at Industrial Acton, Oaktown, leads to Old Oak Common. Long-living Capricorn, old Father Time, is Merlin in Glastonbury Zodiac's Round Table. Was Merlin once imprisoned in these old oaks? If so, he is not alone, for Wormwood Scrubs, what a Capricornian name, delays and frustrates many prisoners here still. How strange that the two most famous prisons on the Zodiac, the other at Wandsworth on Scorpio, are on the Zodiac's two signs of death and reformation. In fact, Capricorn can be the scapegoat. The River Brent cuts off his head. Spur Road, formerly Cutthroat Lane, slits his throat, leading to the Gillette razor factory on the Great West Road. Is it accident merely that so many nobles went to the block from Zion House nearby? The Dukes of Somerset and Northumberland, Lady Jane Grey and Catherine Howard, all went to the Tower and paid with their heads from here on Capricorn's proud neck for rising too high. For Capricorn, the mid-heaven sign can attain eminence by his ambition and dogged persistence, but must beware that pride can have a fall. There are other noble oases on this built-up sign, Gunnersbury Park among them. Capricorn here has only one horn, reminding us of an old secret. Royal, Lion and Unicorn are the Zodiac's summer and winter signs. North Pole Junction is near Capricorn's hind foot. Here on his crutch is Bollow Stream, Bollow Bridge and Lane, on Capricorn's most potent part. Make what you can of that. Turnham Green turns his hams down Acton Lane, and Back Lane is on his back, the old Roman road through Chiswick. Beautiful Chiswick House has a crazy tale that it was once faced with cheeses, doubtless a pun on the word Chiswick. But wind and rain dissolved the cheeses, leaving only the bare bones we now see. Capricorn has rule over the bones in zodiac anatomy. But the truth is even stranger. When Lord Burlington rebuilt the old house, he modelled it on the Palladian Villa Capra in Vicenza. Capra means she-goat. And don't she-goats give milk for cheese? Capricorn's head noses Austerlitz Hill, just as the Glastonbury goat noses the Tor. For goats must climb mountains. His ultimate ambition is the stars, and Zion Lane leads him to the hill of Zion, the New Jerusalem, per ardua ad astra. This sign's feeling for antiquity has made him rich in museums. Gunnersbury Park has one, and Brentford has two, one for music, one for steam. And the antiques at Zion Lodge are a delight. Zion Monastery owned Osterley Hill until it was suppressed. So it really is the Zodiac's Hill of Zion. 18th century Zionists offered vast sums for Zion House, but were refused. As at Glastonbury's New Jerusalem, these rounded shapes can be both Aquarian water pot, the Celtic cauldron of rebirth, and flying eagle or phoenix, the new year rising from the ashes of the old. Note how the vanished village of Strathage, now Jersey Road, hints at the eagle's talons. And aptly enough, two stone eagles greet us as we approach Osterley House. Is it just accident that it once had a famous aviary? Or that Edward III gave Osterley to a man named Faulkner on condition he rode round the estate annually with a falcon on his wrist? Did Edward, a great Arthurian, know the Zodiac secret? Falconer's Fields, now a golf course, are still here. Curious how the phoenix motive persists here. Nicholas Barban also owned Osterley, making a fortune in fire insurance. His emblem, suitably enough, the phoenix. He was the son of Puritan, praise God, Barebones. Capricornian Barebones resurrects as Osterley's phoenix. An Osterley countess died of a fever at Dublin's Phoenix Park. Aquarius is the sign of the common man and of the rising Aquarian age. And aptly, Osterley's first mansion was built by a commoner, Thomas Gresham, an Elizabethan banker. Later, Robert Adam rebuilt it magnificently to vie with ducal Zion below. But a democratic aura persists. One Osterley heiress eloped to Gretna Green to escape her egalitarian father and marry a lord. Her granddaughter did the same, but this time to frustrate her titled father and marry a commoner. The eagles have flown. Uranus rules Aquarius, giving sudden inspiration and sudden changes of fortune. It also gives bizarre twists and unorthodox religion. A bishop, uncle of an Osterley Countess of Jersey, liked to play the masked highwayman from here, but he got shot himself, and the predatory prelate went missing from his pastoral duties for several weeks. Curiously, it was near here at Slough that Herschel discovered Uranus with his giant telescope. Aquarius is a small sign, but its influence seems to spread to Colnbrook's ancient Ostrich Inn, 5 miles along the Bath Road, where Dick Turpin jumped from an upper window onto Black Bess's back and freedom, escaping Bow Street runners who were dashing upstairs after him. A typical Uranian escape. But long before that, a couple with the significant name of Jarman, who owned the ostrich, robbed and murdered travellers by unbolting the floor under their bed as they slept, tipping them into a boiling cauldron in the kitchen below. They then threw the body into the River Caine nearby. Did their name mean water jar man? Templars mysteriously founded this inn, one of our oldest, for the comfort of travellers in this world and their salvation in the next. Was this a Templar tale to alert pilgrims on the Bath Road that they were nearing Osterley's Celtic cauldron of inspiration and rebirth? The M4 slices through the fishes as if they were on a fishmonger's slab. One fish plunges from Aquarius at Heston, while the River Caine draws the other's belly through Cranford Park. Fish, after all, were weighed by the Cran, and the Crane's old name was the Fishbourne. Heston has a truly Piscean tale. Buried in the churchyard is poor Private White, who died of 150 lashes in Hounslow Barracks in 1846. But he didn't die in vain. The vicar of Heston, shocked by such cruelty when asked to bury him, alerted the newspapers. Their accounts so stirred the public that Parliament had to ban flogging forever. Pisces is the sign of self-sacrifice for others. Don't miss the Queen's head while in Heston. It has old beams, a suit of armour, a ghost, and many busts of British queens from Boadicea onwards. These perhaps reflect across to Pisces from its opposite sign, Virgo. This old inn even has fishes swimming beneath the ancient building. Cranford Park was the seat of the Earls of Berkeley, and their old Admiral Sir George, obviously affected by Pisces' Neptunian illusions, built poop-like verandas onto the mansion, from which he would scan the park through his telescope as if he was still on the high seas. Affected by the same ray, his chaplain invented a land yacht, which scudded with him through these acres as if on Piscean waves, to the astonishment of the locals. Cranford's church was Saxon, rebuilt by the Templars and dedicated to St Dunstan, the much-travelled bard. Now renovated, it is still a gem with many effigies. Harlington Church has a statue of Piscean St Peter, aptly marking his place in his Bible with a fish. No doubt this is due to a vicar with the fitting name of Haddock, who restored the church and even had the grace to die on All Souls' Day, as his plaque shows. One Piscean window shows St Christopher staggering through the waves. Its Norman doorway is the county's finest, and its cedar, they say here, was planted by a Templar with a seed from the Lebanon. Templars were certainly active round here. Their religion was Piscean, in that it accepted no boundaries, fusing Christianity with mysteries gathered from their travels in the Middle East. Pisces is the poet and mystic of the zodiac, and Dorley Farm at Harlington, now demolished and replaced by a golf course, became an 18th century poet's corner. Here Lord Bolingbroke entertained Dryden, Pope, Voltaire and Gay, whose Beggar's Opera had a Piscean theme, for Macheath, the singing footpad, was imprisoned. Pisces the mystic can be a homeless wanderer, only at home in institutions. The wandering troubadour is typical of this sign. Dean Swift read Gulliver's famous travels to them. The traveller again. Dorley Farm and its poets have gone, but in their place sculptured Piscean swimmers at Stockley Park point elegant feet skyward. In astrology, Pisces rules the feet. Could anything be more apt? They said that the Bath Road here in winter was good if coach wheels only sank 2 feet into the mud. But in summer, travellers choked on the dust. So Bob made these pumps to lay it. But long before that, Conebrook on this road had a quart of pie powder, pieds poudreux, or dusty feet, to control vagrants, hawkers and chapmen who travelled along it. Those Piscean feet again. Pisceans need seclusion, time to reflect and dream. There should be a monastery here. Is this magnificent old barn, a veritable cathedral in oak, said to be the largest in the country. Happily, it's now preserved. Aries is here a gambolling lamb with face reverted, not a ram. His back drawn by the Roman road to Staines, his underside by the Caine River, and his head suitably enough at Lambton Lane. This sign, ruled by battles of Mars, has scarred Witton and Hounslow with Roman roads and pockmarked the heath with Roman camps. 2 of these, King's Arbour and Caesar's Camp, lie under Heath Row now, with a temple to Mithras, the soldier's god. Armies have drilled and manoeuvred here for centuries. Hounslow Barracks is heir to a long tradition. Catholic James II kept an army here to overawe Protestant London, but when he heard the soldiers cheer at the reprieve of the 7 bishops he'd sent for trial, he realised he'd lost the army's loyalty, and despairing, fled the country. Highwaymen long infested Hounslow Heath. Mars excites adrenaline, the fluid of fright and flight. Dick Turpin and Claude Duval are Aryan types. For Aries, no sneak thief, loves confrontations and has a gallant air. The Green Man at Hatton Cross has a chimney that concealed them from Bow Street runners, and Dick Turpin once escaped through the back of a grandfather clock at a Hounslow inn, while they peppered its front with shot. Aries' forefoot at Witton stamps out martial rhythms at Godfrey Kneller's Jacobean Hall, now the Military School of Music. Drums and bugles entrance Aries' ear. Gunpowder dilates his nostrils. At Witton's old powder mills along the River Caine. His hooves struck dangerous sparks, for huge explosions here could be heard as far as London, while arms and legs rained down out of the sky from those who couldn't hide behind the battle mounds in time. 17th century German swordsmiths settled nearby at Walton Bridge, unconsciously magnetized by this martial sign. Warlike Templars were here too, and the Knights of St. John, naming Hospital Bridge Road. The lamb with reverted head was one of their insignia. Some say the Norse god Tiw lurks in Twickenham's name, and its rugby ground is certainly a battleground, though its heroes are covered more in mud than blood today. The French researcher Gauquelin has found Mars prominent in sportsmen's charts. Twickenham Rugger and Wimbledon's tennis, the only two world-famous sports centres on this zodiac, are both on martial signs. Aries is the pioneer of the zodiac, its first sign. The first Ordnance Survey of England began as a military enterprise on Hounslow Heath, with glass rods 5 miles long, beginning here at Hampton Hill and stretching across to Heathrow. Earth zodiacs need maps to be seen. They should begin on Aries. Pioneering Sir Joseph Banks sailed across the world with Captain Cook to Australia. A great botanist, he introduced new plants from there and named Botany Bay. It was he who first suggested transporting convicts there. Living at Isleworth, he was also the first to import merino sheep, grazing them on the heath. His home is now West Thames College. It was Banks who fitted out the mutinous Bounty under Captain Bligh. Aries can easily become mutinous. The first tank, steam-powered, was tried out here, and the first commercial air flights to Paris, which were adapted Vickers-Vimy bombers, and took off from the Heath in 1919 with many forced landings, for they depended on sight alone for navigation. The first flight to Australia also began here, before Heston or Croydon aerodromes existed. It took 28 days. The first polo match in England was played here, a martial contest between Bengal Lancers and Hussars fresh from India. Is there anything that did not begin on Aries? Taurus here is a large leaping bull, while Glastonbury Zodiac shows only its head. Cancer in both zodiacs is not a crab, but a boat, the neighbouring constellation Jason's Argo. The Kingston boat is correspondingly smaller, its prow drawn by the Thames. Taurus the builder has excelled himself here, but among the many splendid halls on this sign, the jewel in his crown must be Hampton Court. Astrologically, these sculptures, known as the Queen's Beasts, are intriguing clues. They reflect the zodiac signs. Did the Tudors know of the Kingston Circle? Add Henry VIII's astrological clock, and it makes you wonder. Queen Elizabeth certainly studied astrology, and often consulted Dr. Dee, who lived at Mortlake, across the river. The maze is well placed here. Bulls and mazes have gone together ever since Theseus slew the Minotaur, half man, half bull, in the Cretan labyrinth, finding his way out again by means of Ariadne's thread. Is this a parable of overcoming desire by memory and self-analysis? For Venus, goddess of desire, rules Taurus. The Thames draws much of this figure, and its Venusian charm contrasts strongly with neighbouring Aries. The whole area, relaxed and beautiful, is enhanced by elegant mansions and their lawns sloping down to the river. Here gathered high society, patrons of the arts, writers, dramatists, actors, voluptuous actresses and king's mistresses, all very Venusian. At Marble Hill, near Taurus Horns, lived Henrietta Howard and Mrs. Fitzherbert, loved by 2 Hanoverian Georges, while William IV lived at Bushy Park House for years with the actress Mrs. Jordan and their 10 children. At Hanworth Palace, the Duke of Somerset tickled the young Elizabeth and cut her petticoats about, for which Venusian romps he lost his head. There is an ancient mound at an old crossroads here, which became the palace's icebox. At Orleans House, now an art gallery, lived exiled French royalty. Queen Anne was born at Twickenham's splendid York House with its romantic sculptures. Not difficult to imagine high-born fates in these grounds, all rustling silk, beauty patches, powdered wigs and brocade. Poetic Alexander Pope lived here, and the painter Turner nearby, lured by river sunsets. Horace Walpole's mock Gothic Strawberry Hill is another Taurian tour de force. Well named, it is the red bullseye, aimed at point blank by Sagittarius arrow from over the river. Peg Woffington, Noel Coward, R.D. Blackmore of Lorna Doone fame, lived at Teddington. Teddington and Twickenham film studios have continued the theatrical tradition. St Albans Grand Church is now used for TV stage sets and concerts. Another beauty spot is Bushy Park with superb trees, Diana's Fountain, deer and a fairyland of willow-fringed canals, hiding behind David Garrick's grand villa and temple to Shakespeare on the Thames at Hampton. Beauty persists through Sunbury to Halliford, where George Eliot mused and Thomas Love Peacock, what a Venusian name, dreamt and swam with Shelley. And is Shepperton, with its lovely square, not a stage set in every sense? Spectacular loops of the Mole and Ember rivers form the Gemini heads. The northern twin is trying to pull his reluctant brother into his boat to save him. Note Crutchfield Lane on his crutch at Walton. Island Barn Reservoir now largely covers the head of this northern twin, so his eye, once a pond, has gone. The twins in myth, like Cain and Abel, or Castor and Pollux, represent man's dual nature, opposed yet bound together, mortal, immortal, conscious and subconscious. Pollux, here the divine twin of Summer Road, rescues his dark brother of Winter Down and Black Hills. Is this ill-tempered twin also grumpy Wayland Smith, as Wayland's farm suggests? Their hands join on the mole at Bishop Waynflete's Tudor Tower. Shakespeare called it Asher House, consigning Cardinal Wolsey there after his fall from power. Is Asher, Esher, nearby? There is a mystery here, for Bishop Asser, Alfred's biographer, built Walton Church way back in the 800s on the first twin's crutch. Ashley Park and Bishop's Hill, on which the church is built, remember him. William Lilly, the famous astrologer who predicted the Great Fire of London, lived here. His friend Elias Ashmole of Oxford's Ashmolean gave this stone. Did Asser, a learned Welsh monk from St David's, know of this zodiac and its divine twin that bore his own name? It's strange, to say the least, that the name of the eastern sun god covers this effigy from Ashley to Esher. But here is a double image, at first a boy, then a messianic god-man. His bearded head perfectly drawn by the mole, sunk on his chest. His arms raised as though bearing the world on his shoulder like Atlas, or the sins of the world like Christ. It is remarkably similar to the northern twin's double image in the Glastonbury Zodiac. Surely a most extraordinary coincidence. Here, it seems, is the young son of the sun, at once the son of God and man, of so many myths and religions. Evolution's final aim. Is this why Alfred's Welsh biographer took the Asian sun god's name? Alas, only older maps show his delicately drawn features today, for the mole was straightened here in 1970 to prevent flooding, and a new reservoir built on his body. This figure is fading fast from modern maps. We can view his figure from his upraised arm at Sandown Park. The first twins club in England was founded at Walton. Apparently multiple births in the district were double the national average. The second twin is still easily seen in all his desperation, representing ourselves in our present state. His head and arms drawn by the mole at West End Common. The Cancerian lifeboat he refuses is a mere canoe compared with the Glastonbury ship, but at least it is afloat on the Thames. It must stand for Cancer's water sign, as neither star temple has a crab, and Cancer, carrying the young son of the sun, is the zodiac's maternal sign. It is ruled by the moon, and ships are ruled by lunar tides. Here is at once the moon, womb, and tomb boat of nature that cradles mankind and receives him at death. With this sign, we complete this mysterious circle. The Cancerian boat carries intuitive wisdom through the seas of time, for it is not chance, but intuition that has preserved astrological teachings from man's earliest thought to the present day. The stars of the zodiac constellations fit their effigies on the ground when the planisphere is reversed to scale, as they do on the Glastonbury Zodiac, reflecting the heavens on earth. The twin sons of the sun god and Mother Earth complete the old family trinity of many myths and religions, being the circle's only human figures. Its message engraved in the stars and in the earth itself can tell us who we are and why, and promises, if we follow the sun pattern given, an ultimate destiny among the stars.